12 tribes, one family, spread worldwide, one love, one heart. Zechariah chapter 4, verse 6. Not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit, says Yahuwah. Shalom to everyone out there. I hope life is treating you well. I wanted to share a little bit with you today about the Torah reading from this past Shabbat. So you know, as it's recorded in the Brit Chadashah, the Word of God is quick and it is powerful. It's sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder of soul and spirit, the joints and marrow, and it is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of our heart. The word of the Most High is not anachronistic. It is not bound by time. The real history that we find regarding our ancestors in our sacred texts applies even to today and can give us some insight. So what I want to talk to you about briefly today is how faithlessness guarantees failure. Faithlessness guarantees failure. So the story that's found in the book called Numbers, chapter 13, is a very familiar story. It's one that most of us learned early in our childhoods, and it's one of the more relayable and relatable stories. It is about shlach lecha, shlach, or send for yourself, men, and have them go in and spy out, literally, spy out the land of Canaan to see what the land is like, see what the inhabitants are like, see what their cities are like, and just to check it out. Now, of course, in some Bibles, they use some really, really colorful and outlandish words like reconnoiter, go in to reconnoiter the land and whatnot. Just a little bit of a backdrop on the story. So, as the Israelites, the ancient Israelites, our ancestors, were about to make their way into the land, Moses commanded, Moshe commanded that Joshua, Yehoshua, Caleb, and 10 other men, 12 men, each being a prince or a head of his tribe, would go in, up over the mountains and down into the land, and to check it out, okay, and bring back a reconnaissance report. Of course, we know that the land was everything that they dreamt it would be. After all, the Most High had guaranteed this land, or had promised this land to our forefathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And he had promised it to them, and that it would be this great and this awesome land. So they come back with information that was not a surprise. However, things turned bad with 10 of the men, and the only two people that actually proved to have faith was Yehoshua and Caleb. Okay? All right, so I'm going to go here briefly. And one of the things that I love about our text is that it's really good to read from it, in the way in which it was written down, and to share it, okay? So I'm going to take us to really briefly here, the 13th chapter, the 13th chapter of the book called Numbers. And I'm going to show you, or read to you, a little bit about the story, just to build the points that I want to cover, okay? Okay, so it starts off as follows. Wow, I'm in the wrong book. Okay, David, get it together. Bear with me for a second. Okay, here we go. Numbers chapter 13. It starts off with reading as the following. It says, Vayedaber Yehuwah el Moshe lemor, Shlach lecha anashim, vayaturu et eretz Knaan, asher ani noten livnei Israel ish echad, lemate avotav. So basically, the Most High spoke to Moshe and said, send for yourselves men to go out and to laturu, to spy out the land of Canaan, which I have promised to give to you um, and to your fathers, each man from ahead from their tribes, according to their fathers. According to their fathers. Again, this is very significant in a lot of ways, but I don't want to open up a can of worms. Tribal affiliation and lineage was passed down by the fathers in the Torah. While he is Elohei Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, he is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He's also Elohei Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, but chiefly he is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob first, then downstream. Okay, so each man a leader from among them, and they were to go to spy out the land. So the first thing that I want to bring to your attention is I am a wordsmith. I love words and their meanings, okay? And in your Strong's Concordance, number 8446, Strong's Concordance, number 8446, you will find the word tur, spelt with a tav, vav, and a resh. Tav, vav, resh. I'm writing on my air dry erase board. Excuse me. But anyway, this word is rendered as to spy out, okay, or to seek out. The word occurs a couple of times, okay, first here chiefly at the beginning of chapter 13 of Numbers, but it also appears in chapter 15 with respect to the law of tzitziot or tassels, okay? And it's going to prove to be very important, okay? So I want to draw two comparisons for you, and I want you to ponder these. Okay, there is a comparison between the request, okay, or the command that the Most High gave to Moshe to send in men to go and spy out the land. There's a parallel between that and Numbers chapter 13, but also there is a parallel, and I keep saying also, there's a parallel between this instance and an instance in Exodus chapter 17. In Exodus chapter 17, we find that the Israelites had already come through the Sea of Reeds onto dry land. They were making their way through, and they encounter one of their ancient, or wasn't that ancient at the time, but who would prove to be one of their most viable and most ancient enemies later on in the future. And these were the Amalekites, right? So in Exodus chapter 17, verse 9, in the parasha called Beshalach, okay, it reads as following: Vayomer Moshe el Yehoshua, and Moshe said to Yehoshua, or to Joshua, Bahar lanu anashim v'tzeh hilachem be'amalek. Choose men and go out and fight Amalek. Okay, so what's significant about this? Well, they had just come out of Egypt, as I said. They didn't have a whole lot of fighting experience. They were not in organized army, but nonetheless, they're going up against an organized enemy, and they are outnumbered by the Amaleki. Nonetheless, watch how faith comes in here and how it gives us some insight on the notion that faithlessness guarantees failure. And if we read on, after he says, go out and fight with the Amaleki, Moshe continues to say, Machar anochi nitzav al rosh hagiva'ah. Tomorrow I will stand at the top of the hill, umatea Elohim biyadi, with the rod of the Most High in my hand. That same rod that he cast down before the Egyptians, that same rod that he used to dip into the Yaor, or the Nile, and to turn it into blood. It was a symbol, not the source, obviously, but it was a symbol of the power of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh in the hand of his conduit and of his prophet, Moshe. Okay, so as we know, continuing on verse 10, that Yehoshua did as Moshe had told him to fight with the Amaleki, and Moshe would hold his arms up. Remember that? And as long as Moshe kept his arms up, the Israelites prevailed. When his arms gave out and started to drop, then the Amaleki would prevail. Here's the key point here. Verse 12 says this, Veyideh Moshe kvedim v'yikhu even. So Moshe's arms were heavy, so they took a couple of stones, right? Vayasimu mitachtav. And they put his arms up on top of the stones, right? And then notice this word. All right, it says that Vayeshev aleha v'Aharon v'Hur tamchu. That Aaron and a person named Hur, which is a word which means freedom, supported Moshe's hands, right? And the key part of this verse is right toward the end of verse 12. And it says, Vayehi yadav emunah. And so it was that Moshe's hands were emunah. Emunah. Faithful. Faithful, right? Emunah sounds like amen. Let it be, right? Okay. Or ma'amin, the word that we have in Hebrew for believing. So the arms of Moshe were steady. You'll see it translated sometimes as well. Steady and or faithful. His arms were. They were steadfast. This is the essence of what faith is. Of course, we know also in the word that in the Brit Chadashah, we find where it says that without faith, it is impossible to please him. Also, we know that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It's a nice thing to quote, but you have to understand that emunah is chizuk. It is to be strong. It is to be firm. It is to be steadfast. It's to be steadfast. Faith is believing in the source of your strength, regardless of what you see with your natural eyes. Okay? So I said that I wanted to draw a parallel between those two events. The first event, chronologically anyway, in Exodus chapter 17, was the Israelites going out to fight against the Amaleki. Next, with this week's parashah, in Numbers chapter 13, we find that men are being chosen again to go in and to do some searching into the land. Let's find out a little bit what happens in the parashah. Of course, you know the story, but I just want to give you a little color here in between the lines of the things that took place. So they went into the land, as we know, and they looked around, and here's what Moshe wanted to know. Okay, this seems, excuse me, this seems rhetorical, maybe, obviously, because surely the Most High knew what was in the land and what the people were like and all these other things. But here we're finding that the people are being required to do a little work. And why do I say they're being required to do a little work? Well, in comparison to the event in Exodus 17, when they went out to fight the Amaleki, they literally had to just show up. Moshe held his hands up. They knew what their source of power was and from whom their strength came, and they prevailed. In this case, they're being required to do a little footwork. No free ride here. Your source is still the Most High. Your source is still Him and His power, but you need to do a little something, okay? You need to chip in a little bit. Okay, so let's find out what happened as they went into the land. Okay, so they went into the land, right? And this is what Moshe wanted to know. Uritem et haaretz mahiv. Take a look at the land and see what is it. Ve'et ha'am hayoshev aleha hehazak hu harapeh. If the people in the land, are they weak or are they strong? Hame'at hu imarav. Are they many or are they few? Uma ha'aretz asher hu yoshev ba hatovahiv imara'a. Is the land good, right? Or is it bad? Uma ha'arim asher hu yoshev behena habemachanaim im bemivtzarim. or if the cities that they dwell in, are they heavily fortified or are they standing wide open, right? He wants to know also, Umaha Aretz Hashmenahiv Imraza, if the land is fat or plentiful, or if it's lean and thin. Okay, so to move forward, because you know the story, but I just want to give you a little coloring in between. Here's what happened. They come back with a report and they tell of all of the awesome things that the land has, right? Shock. No surprise. The land is great and it's good, right? Well, they give up the information, right? The good information, but then it goes all downhill, down the toilet from there, right? Because now, again, you've gone into the land, at least 10 of the men have gone into the land and they're looking only with their natural eyes, and they are not looking with the eyes of the Spirit. They are not looking with the eyes of faith, but they are tripping on what they see before them, right? And the penalty was high for that sin. Here they go. So they, in chapter 13, verse 27, it says, "Vayisapru lo ve'yomru banu el haaretz asher shalachtanu." We came into the land that you sent us to. V'gam zavat halav udvash hi. And this land truly is flowing with milk and honey. And then they say, "V'zeh priyah." And here is the fruit. Here is the proof of it. So if you're familiar with the story, again, you know that they had a moat or a pole across the shoulders of two men, and on it hung a big ishkolit, or a cluster of grapes, so big and so heavy that two men had to drop a pole across their shoulders in order to carry it. They had figs, they had date palms. This land was so fertile and produced just monstrous size fruit, right? That's the great part of the report. After that, watch where faithlessness kicks in and guarantees the failure and the subsequent penalty that would follow for that lack of faith, of that lack of faithfulness, for the lack of that emunah that Moshe's arms showed in Exodus chapter 17, verse 12. They were not steadfast. They did not hold. They did not believe. They did not have faith. So after talking about all these great things in verse 28, they say the following, Ephes ki, but it's all for naught. Ephes ki, az ha'ama yoshev ba'aretz ve'he'arim b'tzurot gdolot me'od, because the cities that are there are uber fortified. They're too fortified. We can't get into them. V'gam v'lidei ha'anak ra'inu sham, and the children or the offspring of the giants we have seen there. What giants? The San Francisco giants up the street from where I live now? No. The giants of fame from the book Bereshit, the Nephilim, the fallen ones. Okay, so when they came into the land, again, just to give you logistically an idea, when they came into the land, they were near the plains of Paran, right? They were out near Timnah, but very near to Hebron. Today it's called Hebron. Back in the day, it was known as Kiryat Arba. Kiryat means city of, Arba means four. So the city of the four was called this because the main person or the founder of the city was a giant, literally. And his name was, Anak. And Anak is where we get the modern Hebrew word for giant. But it was Anak and his three sons. So the city was called Kiryat Arba, the city of the four, also known as Hebron. In modern colloquialism in Arabic, today it's called El Khalil. El Khalil. Also, the area where the children of Israel, our ancestors, crossed in, was known or is known today as Qasr el Yahud. It is the crossing of the Israelites there, okay? So they spit all these things out. Now here, they noted also that on four borders they were surrounded by their enemies. If we go into this land, it's bad enough that the place is highly fortified and the cities are like, fortresses, but we're surrounded by enemies on four sides. Who are these enemies? Verse 29, chapter 13, they say, Amalek Yoshev be'eretz HaNegev. So Amalek dwells in the desert parts in the south. והחיתי והיבוסי והאמורי יושב בהר. So the Canaanites, the Jebusites, Jebusite, Yebusi, and the Amorites, they are all dwelling in the north, in the mountain areas, right? והכנעני יושב על הים ועל יד הירדן. And the Canaanites are in the east and in the west, bordering the sea, okay, the great sea, Hayam Agadol, and on the Jordan side. So we're done. We're done. Listen to the faithlessness. Now, to put this in perspective, these are the same people, not only just the everyday people, but these are the princes, the heads of, the male heads of the 12 tribes. The 10 that are doing all of the whining and talking and faithlessness, they witnessed the greatest empire of their time get crushed. And we're speaking of Egypt, Mitzrayim, crushed by Yud-He-Vav-He, by our Elohim. The gods of Egypt, the would-be gods of Egypt, were put on judgment, okay? The entire army, we believe, was drowned in Yam Suf. Yam Suf, the Sea of Reeds, right? It became corrupted. They dropped one of the E's and it became the Red Sea, but it's the Sea of Reeds, Yam Suf. Suf is like a bamboo pole, that grows out of the water. And they'd seen all these wonderful miracles, the pillar of fire by day, by night, and the pillar of cloud by day. And they'd witnessed all of these great miracles. But in the face of seeing giants, right, that they claimed that made them look like grasshoppers and fortified cities and enemies on every border, they rendered their Elohim as, they didn't even bring him up. He wasn't even brought up in the conversation. How egregious of a sin for you to you didn't even bring him up. But you have Yehoshua and Caleb, who said, no, he will deliver this people into our hands and give us this land as he promised. And the people basically told him to shut up. And they threatened to give them a stone shower. Okay, here's where it comes to a head. And Yehoshua and Caleb gets up and they say their piece, as I just told you, and they were threatened to be stoned. Okay, and then here's what happened. It became worse. Chapter 14, verse 1 of Numbers reads as follows. Vatisa kol ida v'yitnu et kolam v'yivku ha'am balayla hahu. So the entire community of Israel lifted up their voices and they cried that night. Vayilonu al Moshe ve'al Aharon kol bnei Israel vayomru aleihem, and they complained. Yilonu, they complained and murmured against Moses and Aaron, and they said the following: Lu matnu ba'aretz Mitzrayim. Oh, if only we had died in the land of Egypt. O bamidbar hazeh lu matnu. Or oh, if only we had died in this wilderness. And then they asked the question, verse 3, Lama Yehovah מביא אותנו על הארץ הזאת ליפול בחרב, נשינו וטפנו יהיו לבז. Why, oh why did Yud-He-Vav-He bring us into this land to fall by the sword in the desert? Our women and our children will be basically bound. Lavaz will be bound and taken captive. Halo tov lanu shuv mitzrayma. Halo tov lanu lashuv mitzrayma. Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt? So they raised up a couple of leaders and they were voting to go back to Egypt. So what happens? Moshe falls on his face and he cries out to the Most High, he and Aaron together, right? The spirit of our living Elohim appears before them. And he tells Moshe plain and simple, get out of the way. Step aside and I will exterminate these people, literally exterminate these people. And I'll start all over with you. I'll start all over with you and I will raise a great people from you. Moshe, being a true archetype of Mashiach Yeshua, does what he's supposed to do. He steps into the gap, okay? The breach that's there. He steps in and puts himself in harm's way. And he said, what will the nations think? What will the world say? What will Egypt say? You, Yahuwah, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, of fame, worldwide fame now, the world knows you now. They'll say that you brought them out of Egypt with this strong hand, Beyad Chazakah, with a strong hand, Uvizro'ah Netuyah, and with an outstretched arm. And you couldn't even bring them into the land. What will they say? What about your name? Think about your name. And why is his name again important? It's because his calling card, his signature miracle, to introduce himself to a world full of people who worshiped gods that were nothing of the sort, was to crush the mighty empire of its day and judge their would-be gods. All right? And it's reflected in our first two of what we call the Aseret Hadibrot, or the 10 matters of the 10 commandments. Number 1, Anochi Yehovah Elohecha asher hotzitecha me'eretz Mitzrayim mi-beit Ovadim. I and I alone am Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage. Number 2, Lo yeh lecha Elohim acharim al panai. Don't you have another Elohim before my face. And as he did what he did in breaking judgment on Egypt and showing the world, in the meantime, or in the midst of that, he said, so that Egypt will know, She'ani Yehovah Elohecha, that Egypt will know that I am Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, and so that you will know that I am Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. His name and his reputation is tied up into everything that he does. Bit of a tangent, but I felt it important to point out. So Moshe interceded, and the Most High said, okay, just because you asked, I'll do it for your sake. But guess what? Faithlessness guarantees failure, in that the penalty for the faithlessness meant that everyone whose eyes saw the great miracle of being brought out of Egypt, they would not cross over and go into that land. They would not see this land ever. They would not see it because of faithlessness, because of what you saw back then. And then you run into this little obstacle and you don't even mention me. You don't even consider me. So the evil report, the faithless, godless report that the 10 brought back, saving the 2, except for the 2, and the people in turn responding to this horrible sin, precipitated the punishment, the onish, or the punishment of not going into the land. You would circle and you would die. You would circle in that desert until all of you died off. And they were right at the door. Eretz Zavat Halav Udvash, a land flowing with milk and honey. What's the milk? Well, the place is full of livestock and animals that yield milk. What's the honey? Well, if you've ever been there, and you need to get there just once before all the seals are poured out, and the vials are poured out. When you come into the area of Qasr el-Yahud, where our ancestors crossed into, one of the first things that just explodes in front of your face, near Hebron and near Riha or Jericho, is you see a huge cluster of date palm trees. They're called tamarim. In Psalm chapter 92, it says, Tzaddik katamar yifrah. A righteous man is like a date palm. Okay? Then it goes on to mention Beseva, or in his older age, he will continue to bear fruit. Shetulim bevet Yehovah. He will be planted firm in the house of the Most High. Date palm trees carry a fruit known as dekel. It's a date palm. in English, okay, but it's called a dekel. And these date palms are swollen and full of date honey. These trees are pregnant with with the fruit, with the dekel, and a lot of times they have to net them off in order to keep the birds from eating up all of the fruit. But when they hit their fullest, honey just dvash or honey just drips out of these dates and falls onto the ground. So a lot of cases around these trees, you'll find slippery paths if it's near something that's paved or whatever. But the land was really that fertile and really that fruitful. So they were right there at the door. But now you're going to get 38 years or so of roaming, right? Until that whole generation died off. Faithlessness guarantees failure. It's sad. It's sad. A couple other things to throw past you or throw at you, and then I'll get out of here. When the Most High chooses someone, because there's a lot of things that you could get out of this Torah portion. Faithlessness guaranteeing failure. There's a lot of things you can get out of it. Leadership, what makes a great and a strong leader and a godly leader. But I want you to notice a theme that goes throughout the Tanakh, throughout the Torah, is when a man falls in line with the will of the Most High, there's a shift in his nature and often a change in his name. A shift in his nature and a change in his name. Case in point, Avram, right? Believed, and it was counted to him for righteousness. Avraham Ha'ivri, the one who crossed over. Avraham, the very first Hebrew, right? His name was changed from Avram, Aleph, Vet, Resh, Mem, Sofit, and a Hey was stuck into the middle of it. He became Avraham. That letter Hey is one of the foundational letters of the name of the Most High, Yud He Vav He. Okay? Sarai, which meant nothing of particular report, became Sarah, which means princess. It is the feminine form of the word Sar, which is the foundational root of the word Israel. Okay? Yaakov, our ancestor, his name was changed to Israel. Sar means prince or to strive. To strive or to become a prince by way of striving. If you strive, you achieve standing. Okay, he strove with the Most High, therefore he achieved standing. She became Sarah. Hoshea bin Nun, who we know as Joshua. His birth name was Hoshea, which means save, or Hoshiana or Hoshiana, Hosanna, we say in the corrupted English form. But Hoshea is a plea, it means to save. But when the infinite value that the Most High saw in Yehoshua and his faith, and even as an understudy to Moshe, that value was very obvious. But Moshe changed Yehoshua's name in Exodus chapter 17 and called him Yehoshua. What's the difference? Hoshea had spelled Hey, Vav, Shin, Ain, and he changed it to Yud, Hey, Vav, Shin, Ain. So in his name change, he gained the first three letters of the name of the Most High. He left being called Hoshea and became Yehoshua. Okay, shift in name, shift in nature, right? Okay, this is important and is foundational because think about it. In the Brit Chadashah, we are told that we will be given a new name, brothers and sisters, Achim va'achayot. We will be given a new name, okay? Our natures have already been shifted, okay? Now, we can argue about whether the work is complete or not, but the work has definitely started. But our natures have already been shifted by way of the Ruach HaKodesh that he has placed within us. And we will get that name change in name, change in nature. So the word that I mentioned to you at the beginning, that's been translated as spy, Strong's number 8446, 8446, it also means to unravel, to separate, to pull apart, and even to free, even to set free. You are familiar with terms like setting the captives free. Yeshua set the captives free. There's a term, matir asurim. Matir, okay, to our word 8446 is related. It's from the same root. Our word is tur, matir. It's from the same root and it means to release. So the Most High in some writings is called matir asurim, the one who looses or sets free the fettered. He frees the fettered. He sets the captive free. Okay, so why is this important? Finally, I'm going to take you to this. In Numbers chapter 15, there's the commandment for tassels, okay? Numbers chapter 15, there is the commandment of tassels, or what we call tzitziot. We know what they're for. A lot of people have a unique spin that they've put on the tassels. Some have their own designs. I think it's an awesome thing. But I want to show you something in the scripture that you might not have been aware of. If you go to Numbers chapter 15, verse number 37, reads as following. Vayomer Yehovah el Moshe lemor, דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת להם ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם. So, the Most High speaks to Moshe and says, command the children of Israel to make fringes on the borders of their garments, ledorotam, throughout their generations, v'natnu al tzitzit kanaf petil tchelet, and on each one put a thread of blue. והיה לכם לציצית, וראיתם אותו וזכרתם את כל מצוותיי, את כל מצוות Yehovah, as a matter of fact. And when they see them, it will remind them of all of the commandments of the Most High. And here's the most important part. Va'asitem otam, and to do them. Not to just remind you of them, but to remind you of them so that you can do them. So here we go. The word tool that appears at the top of this chapter, when it says send men in velaturu, and to search out or to spy out the land. Here's that same word in a different form in 8446. That's 8446 in the Strongs. Velo taturu. Can you hear it? Velaturu at the beginning of the chapter. Velo taturu. And don't search out. Don't search out what? Velo taturu ahare levavchem. And do not search out or spy out after your hearts. Don't search out that which was asked of them to do with respect to the land, to search it out. You're being told not to do this with respect to your heart. ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם אשר אתם זונים אחריכם. So do not search out, do not pull apart, do not search out your heart, okay? Do not search out after your heart and with your eyes that you use to whore. It's not my word, zonim. ולא תטורו אחרי עיניכם ואחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם אשר אתם זונים. Zonim is to prostitute or to whore. So the heart, first of all, the eyes, brothers and sisters, it's the windows to our soul. Whatever comes through these processes in this brain of ours goes into our heart, into our inner man. And it corrupts. It can corrupt. Now, all filthiness and wickedness comes from inside, as Yeshua explained in Mark chapter 7. The things that can make us dirty is what comes out of us. But when we bring things into these windows, when it hits our hearts, it activates sin. Yeshua said about the heart, and the Brit Chadashah says about the heart, that the heart is desperately wicked above all things. My heart, your heart, everyone's heart. So even though we have the indwelling Ruach HaKodesh, he is bending our nature daily with the tzitziot, with the recalling of his mitzvot, and doing them every day, glory to glory. It changes us and molds us into the image of his son. But in the meantime, there's a war going on, and Paul makes this clear in Romans chapter 7, where he says, there's a war going on inside of me, where two laws are warring against each other. One is the law of my flesh, and the other one is the law of God. He loves in his spirit man being obedient. He loves the law of the Most High, but he strives. So the guy that some of us are guilty of putting on too high of a pedestal, again, that's another can of worms. He was a brilliant man. But even he says, oh, what a wretched man that I am. That which I don't want to do, I find myself doing. Oh, wretched man, but thanks be to Yehovah, right? So he that begins a good work, okay, he's faithful and he's true to finish it. Finally, just have this thought. Here's a thought I want to leave with you. Faithlessness guarantees failure in that if you choose to see with the natural eye your obstacle that's before you, okay, and you don't see it from the standpoint of a son who has a father who has a proven track record, a proven track record for keeping his word and being faithful to his word and protecting his name and his reputation. It's not your fight. It's not my fight. Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, says Yehovah. Why? Because we don't have the power in and of ourselves. He's already made it plain that I'm here. I'm available for you. The relationship is reciprocal. I love you. You show me that love back. You be obedient. And you will come up before your enemies, and your enemies will scatter in 7 directions from before you. Who is this mountain? What is this mountain that stands before you, Zerubbabel? The prophet says, not by might nor by power, but by my spirit. It will become a plain. It will become yashar. It will become straight. So searching out the heart in closing, think of a great surgeon who's going into and has to open the body of a person who has been diagnosed with cancer. In order to get to the core of the problem, he has to set aside good organs and good things that are healthy in order to get to the core of the problem. This was the case with the land of Canaan, surrounded by all the good, surrounded by all the plenty, the fertility, the lush green, the water. But there was a cancer inside, and it was the sinful people. Okay? And it had to be extracted. With the heart, it's not quite the same. There's only one who can seek out the heart and who knows the heart. The word of the Most High is quick and powerful, sharper than a two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder, taturu, to the dividing asunder, or the pulling apart, or the seeking out, okay, of the heart. It's precise. It even knows the thoughts and intents of the heart. Okay? All things are naked and open before the eyes of him with whom we have to do. So there are things sometimes that we do have to go through in order to root out and get out the bad, okay, in our personal lives, things that we have to root out. Let's be faithful in doing that. But number one, let's be faithful. Let's be emunah. Don't forget, keep the image in your mind of Moshe, whose arms are up, and he's holding the staff of the Most High in his hand. And they have his arms, the top of his elbows resting on 2 rocks, and they're holding his hands up It's Aharon, his brother, and Hur, another person. Aharon, the high priest, and the guy named Hur, whose name means freedom. Ben-Hur, Hur, Hurin, means free, okay? Means free or freedom, right? And it brings us to today as we still fight for freedom, as we languish in Egypt still, um, in the news cycle. George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, so many names, young Tamir Rice. Right down the street here in Oakland, California, where I live, is the Fruitvale Station, where Oscar Grant was executed in the open air on New Year's Eve, on New Year's Day. We still fight. We're still fighting because we're in Galut. We're still in exile. But we know that he is faithful. He is emunah. Just like Moshe's arms, the text says, in his arms were emunah, faithful, steadfast, and strong. And this is what we need to be. Why? Because faithlessness guarantees failure. Let's not fail anymore. Let's move forward. Let's turn back fully to him. Let's learn of his ways, his laws, his statutes, and his commandments. Let's do them. Let's teach them to our children. And be ready, because Geulah, or redemption, Geulah is near. I believe it. I believe it, brothers and sisters. So in the meantime, peace and love to you all. Shalom, v'shalva, v'ahava, to all of you. Yeah, it doesn't feel like it sometimes, but everything will be okay. Soon, all the roads will be for our good, and for no one else. It'll be our time. Stand fast while he molds us and makes us and transforms us from glory to glory. Okay, take care, folks, and shalom.